us and theming. It can start with one person and then other folks get sucked in. In this video, I'll show you how polarization or us and theming develops and what you can do to bring folks back together. Hi, I'm Lydia Richards, CEO of Teamworks, where we create follow-worthy frontline managers in a 13-hour course. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and we'll keep you up to date. So us and theming, that process of silos and factions and turf wars where people or groups of people get further and further apart, us and them. It can begin with something huge, but oftentimes it begins with the smallest incident. So we're going to walk through one, and I'm going to start you with the tiniest incident I can think of. Somebody leaves their dirty coffee cup in the company kitchen. No big deal, but let's say they do it again. And then let's say you notice some other actions and behavior that feel a little bit similar. So you watch these similar events for a while, and at that point you might just, without even really knowing it, develop some kind of a judgment about this person. What might you say? What judgment might you make about them? My judgment of them might be messy or inconsiderate. We don't like to have conflicting opinions about something at the same time. If we make a judgment, we're likely to just check that out. And in the beginning, it's just out of fairness that we would gather evidence so that we know that we are not falsely accusing somebody being messy or inconsiderate. So we gather evidence. And we just are a little bit more watchful. At this point, it's only happening inside you. But at this point in us and theming, a subtle change happens. Because if I'm watching their behavior, let's say messy or inconsiderate, I am likely to make sure that I'm cleaning up my own behavior when it comes to those things specifically. That I might make sure that my desk is a little more clean than usual and that I'm a little bit more considerate than, at least I would be watchful about it. So we've already created me versus him or her, because there's a division now that's happening out there in the real world. Let's say this goes on for some period of time, my judgment might increase. And then again, in the beginning it's just to make sure that I'm being fair. I might go and ask somebody else if they see the same kind of behavior that I see. Is this going on? Are you seeing this too? So that's when we call for backup. We might compare notes in the beginning, but then end up sort of building a coalition. And this is a fascinating piece, because what can happen here is a development of common enemy intimacy. This is you and I are really good buddies because we both don't like him, or we don't like her behavior, or we don't like some. So common enemy intimacy, super powerful relationship. And now it is about us versus them. The coalition might gain more people or might deepen. And the other side, the other person or the other people just keep doing what they're doing. They may not even be aware that any of this it might not be on their radar at all. Then there's a shift, because it's not about their behavior anymore. It's about them. It's about the kind of people they are. And by the way, we are not that kind. We are the good kind over here, right? We are good and we are right. Again, this develops over time, and eventually there is a turning point. And the turning point is when, in the beginning, I saw the behavior, I didn't like it. And at the turning point, I actually want to see the behavior that I found so offensive. And the more offensive it is, the better I like it. There's a private glee that comes with seeing that bad, outrageous behavior. We see this kind of us and theming in organizations all the time. There might be production on one side and quality on the other, or senior management on one side and the workforce on the other, or HR on one side and, I don't know, name the department. Oftentimes, it continues to develop further and further, polarizing. So by far the best way to address this is to get it early on, before it gets really far down, when it's still up about behavior. So watch when you see that maybe you've made a judgment about somebody. That should be a yellow flag. When you're in a conversation a side conversation with somebody about somebody else, that's a red flag. That's that building a coalition. Sometimes people say, oh, I don't need to, I'm not bad mouthing somebody, I just need to let off some steam. No, you don't. Actually, that is how you get us and theming, is when people are willing to let off steam over here, then my judgment is going to infect that person, and they are now part of us. So be real careful before you go and have a conversation. It's fine to have a conversation with management and with transparency and the right people in the room, but if we're having a conversation over here about them, don't do it. Don't do it. That's exactly how this gets developed. So let's say you find yourself all the way down and past the turning point, right? What do you do? How can you bring this back together? Well, I suggest a 3-step process. And the first is by far the hardest, because the first is you are going to need to look at your own motives, to take a hard look in the mirror and say, what am I getting out of being in this conflict, this us and theming? There's all kinds of things that people get, and don't feel bad about it. Sometimes we like the common enemy intimacy. We have friends based on how much we don't like that other person. Maybe it's good to feel like a victim so you can make them the bad guy, right? Or maybe it's being superior or justified or smarter, or maybe you're competing for management's attention and approval. Lots of reasons we get stuck in this. So recognizing what your part is in it is really important before you go trying to change somebody else. Now, if you're on a team, your whole team's going to need to do that work together to say, okay, what are we getting out of staying in this us and theming relationship? And your team might say, well, nothing, we didn't do anything. Exactly. How might that have contributed? So after you've done that work, you recognize what you've done and own it yourself, then you can go on to the next step. Step 2 is to address their behavior. If you still need to address it, I mean, maybe in this first step you can figure out that their dirty coffee cup is not that important. But maybe you do. Maybe you need to address it. If you do, you need to speak to the behavior. Remember, way up at the top is the behavior. Only the behavior, not if they're inconsiderate or they're messy. Those are judgments. Behavior, coffee cup, car, refrigerator. Right? Address their behavior. If you'd like more on how to give feedback, we have a great video. I swear it is a fail-safe process on how to give skillful feedback. So you might look that up on our site. And then the third step is to make clear requests and ask them what requests they have for you. This process then moves it forward, so how we're going to be in the future. And then circle back and have conversations about this. Transparency helps a lot. It's when we're not talking that things generally tend to get further and further apart. So there you have it, us and theming. I did it in a really short video. This is part of our 13-hour program of creating follow-worthy frontline managers. Excited about the program, would love to share more of it with you. So look in the comment box below. There's links that you can learn more about the program. See you next time.